And we've got an esteemed panel here that have been discussing this with you at home and also members of the audience here. One quick question here that's come from Sihle Ngobese via Twitter says, can Minister Nkwinti explain why poor rural folk living in tribal authorities to this day are not allowed to own land?
Well, we have started consultation on the communal land tenure model. And one of the things that we have done in that model, we are proposing, and we hope that this is going to get support, that every household must be treated firstly as a basic production unit, because it's not just about owning land, it's about producing, having food and selling the surplus. Secondly, we then said, because it's a communal land, it's a communal area, what we should do is to institutionalize the use right. In other words, make it permanent and perpetual in law, so that people can use it as a will, can will it, in other words, to generations to come. They can use it as a collateral. But because we know also that when people are in trouble, they go to the banks, they use the land as a collateral, and they can't service the loan, the land gets taken away. We are introducing a protection to that by saying that the very community should have the first right of refusal. If the community is unable to, in other words, when the person is in trouble with the banks, that the state should have the second right of refusal, because we don't want to get land for people and then again the land is taken away. So that's the answer to that.
Okay. Judge Meir, I'm just wondering, what kind of claims typically are you receiving and hearing in your court?
The most common type of claim we get are claims lodged on behalf of communities who were dispossessed or whose forebears were dispossessed of rights in land. These are complex claims. In most instances, the communities are claiming physical restoration of land. Now, the situation can be exacerbated by the fact that very often you will have competing claims by communities to the same land, and the land might be in the hands of individual landowners, or the land could today bear absolutely no resemblance to the land that was dispossessed. The difficulties with those kind of claims is that it is very often hard for indigent, unsophisticated claimants to produce the evidence required. And that is where the court steps in as an inquisitorial court to manage the process through a series of conferences to assist the expeditious resolution of the claims. The other type of claims that we have, which are easier to handle, are claims by individual persons who were dispossessed. Those typically would be urban claims, and very often those claimants are people who've moved on with their lives, don't want to return to the land that was dispossessed or the properties that were dispossessed, and they claim financial compensation.
Okay. Prof, whilst we're here, just a question for you. Are there some people who are actually going to slip through the cracks, literally because A, they don't know their history, born and bred in the townships perhaps, and don't know that they might even have a claim? I mean, just by being black, you should actually have a claim, de facto, surely. So, so I'm wondering, are there a lot of people that are literally just going to miss out?
Yes, in fact, that has already happened. There are quite, even in urban areas, as you say. In Duncan Village, for example, in the city where I come from, which is East London, there are families who are still even now saying that they were left out when the research was undertaken, into their claim, because some of them were not aware of their rights, and they didn't know exactly what they needed to do. So I think this places quite a challenge on the department and on the component within the department, within the structures of the department that is dealing with restitution, to redouble their efforts, to go the extra mile in identifying and assisting those households and those individuals and even communities for that matter. And I think it's a very positive development that there's this reopening of the lodgement, period, and its extension to 2018. Because, learning again from some of the errors that were made in the past, people of that nature that I'm referring to could have an opportunity to be covered, to be addressed and to have their situation resolved.
Okay. Table number 12. Oh my God. Gugile Nkwinti. I hope that's. You're going to have to say your name. Aha.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Perhaps maybe let me start by
Very briefly.
by correcting what has been left out here, going to the detail now, on the Native Land Act. Peter, I don't blame you, but I know it's dispossession of knowledge also. Because you've been saying, yeah, the Native Land Act made black people to own 30% of the land. 13%. 13%. That is not actually true. It is 7% in 1913. And it is only 23 years after that then it became 13.6. You see, that's dispossession of knowledge. It went through with the colonial dispossession of land. I'm saying this because this is very important. These are the details we ought to be engaging with when we're engaging this land reform matter, because it's very contentious, very sensitive to many different people. Again, the minister is saying that it was said by President. I don't want to disagree with the President there, but it's important that we must raise these details. That the Khoi and the San were dispossessed before 1913. That is very correct, but it was not only them who were dispossessed before that time. It was not only them. There were many other land grabs and thefts that happened before that time. And now, when you talk about land reform, to what end? To what end? My proposal is this. I'm giving a proposal because it's very important that we must not just raise questions and don't give proposals. My proposal is this. If we are to be a society that must move out of pedestrian growth and unnecessary social tensions, we ought to deal with alternatives of dealing with issues. Alternative to the current class and political interests. But to have rapid and long effect in terms of the land reform. This is my proposal. That the state must realize that it is only the democratic state that is supposed to be owning land for redistribution of income and of wealth to the general society, not individual silos who are going to be the ones who are going to, in the different end, perpetuate inequalities. Because the reality is that the Khoi and the Sans today, because of their dispossession long time ago, repping it, they are the ones who are at the receiving end in terms of inequalities. But 10 years from now, it will be other people. This is why I'm proposing that the state must realize land ownership should be of the state, by the state, for the redistribution of everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Minister, I'm going to give you that. All right, yeah.
Yes, you see, just on this point raised by this gentleman about how far back we can go and who else can claim. It is quite true that the African people, the indigenous African people of this country, were dispossessed of their land long before 1913. In fact, when 1913 came, and this particular act that we're talking about, what was happening then was a process of consolidation of what were basically the spoils of conquest, and their codification and sort of channeling through a specific legislative framework. However, coming to the point that says, what then needs to happen? I think it is important that we should orientate ourselves towards ensuring that we have critical mass of Africans who own land, and in particular, I mean agricultural land. But not just owning the land for the sake of owning it, admiring it, and just looking at it, but owning it as going concerns, as economic units, as productive entities. In other words, land reform, as I said earlier on, should become part and parcel of an integrated strategy of development, of economic and social development, where you've got the agrarian component becoming a critical and important part of it. I just felt perhaps it's important to raise that aspect. Peter.
All right. Do you want to add anything, Minister, to that?
Can we add? Can I add?
Yeah.
Yes, I think agrarian transformation for us in government means changes in patterns of ownership, of use, of control. And so the land audit that we have just completed enable us to understand who owns what in the country, what land is in the hands of the state, in the public, what land is in the hands of the of private individuals and or trusts. And one of the little dark spaces is about classification. The deeds registration system does not ask you whether you are black or white. So we can't tell whether this registration is for a black person who owns land and or it's someone else. So one of the, we've requested the statistician general to permit us to examine that detail so that we have a picture of black-white ownership of land so that we have a sense of that issue. But the important thing, even the Freedom Charter says it is those who work it, that is the land, who shall be given the land. It's a very important qualification. They were very visionary, those who thought about these matters then. And I think that our attempt is to create conditions for not only people acquiring land, but our systems of support must be such that it qualitatively enables them to undo one of the damages of the 1913 Act, which was by overcrowding people in Bantustans and so-called reserves. It also led to the damage to the environment, overgrazing and overcrowded conditions. So part of our work is to rehabilitate soils and the land, to bring it to its fertility, to be able to produce what is necessary for communities that live on it and so on. So that's part of the agenda. So environmental protection and regeneration is a key managing the legacy of the 1913 Land Act.
All right, Deputy, thank you very much indeed. Let's go quickly to table number 16 before we take another break. Sure, I'm writing today. Chief, table 16. Table 16. Say, if you could just say your name. Yo. Can we get another microphone to Chief Sekonyela?
Ke a leboa mohlompe motsamaishi wa mosebetsi e re ke re ka bokgutshwanyane fela protocol observed. Nna ke morena diraga di bonwe ra mashweleshwele Sekonyela ho tswa ho batlokwa bana ba mokotleng bao ba neng ba eteletswe pele kgale ke nkgono Manthatisi mo ke leng teng ke mona ebe mmuso o ka thusa jwang hore batho ba sa kenyeletswang ka morao ho 1913 ha ba na le mabaka a utlwahalang le bona ba shebue bakeng sa ho nkelwa naha tsa bona ka tsela tseo ba nketsweng tsona naha. Ya bobedi o ko shebe leano lena la William Baya William Sela hore le batla le hlokofatsa batho ka lebaka la hobane mefuta ya ditjhaba mona South Africa e hloleha ho thola naha ka lebaka la leano leo la mofuta jwalo. Molao o etswa ke batho ebile o tjhentjhwa ke batho. Ha o bo etswe di-amendment tse itseng ha fela hona le the concrete or the sound and then reasons that those nation has been dispossession of their land. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know who wants to.
Yes, I'll respond to that.
Okay.
Can I translate his first name first? He's a chief. The enemy is not seen. Okay.
Okay.
And he wants to know whether those who missed the claim period can claim.
Yeah.
And secondly, that willing buyer, willing seller clearly is not helpful.
Right.
And that in fact it is such that it distracts from achieving what we would like to achieve. And so because laws are made by people and policies, and so they can be changed by people.
Right.
There is first response is that this is precisely why we are reopening the land claims. As we speak, we are changing the law to remove the deadline of the 31st of December. And secondly, we have produced a citizen manual in all the languages so that people in their own language will understand how to claim, where to claim, and what is needed and expected of them to produce to validate their claims. And as soon as the law is signed, made law, we will announce the date of the claims and so on. And so we are also putting in systems, Peter, working with the Human Sciences Research Council to increase our capacity, quantity of researchers, but also to improve our quality of research, working with our internal project managers, so that the quality of the research that is done itself, but the numbers, we can complete those outstanding quicker, and those that are new, because of the way they are going to be recorded electronically, will enable us to do that work far more with greater speed than we were able to do in the past. So we hope that this process will reach people quickly this time around. Yeah.
All right, great. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.